Sure. So I help Hong Kong family offices and businesses in Asia establish US corporations when they want to move their operations or start investing here in the United States over to the US. My contract review process was completely manual. I would open up a Microsoft Word document and if I was reviewing client redline, it would just simply be run track changes and see what the differences were. And then I would manually go accept and reject each of them. And a lot of it had to do with my memory, right? What I in the past previously may have accepted or not. And it was extremely time consuming and really exhausting because it required a tremendous amount of unnecessary work. And I say unnecessary just with respect to how my contract review process is now. Obviously, one of the best things that I use right now is the context. So I can have my review be based on a set of criteria that I want to review it against. I oftentimes will ask it to provide alternative clauses that are not super aggressive but not super passive. I think that's really helpful is being able to temper my red line. I also like the fact that I can ask it questions about areas of substantive law that I may or may not have remembered exactly. It's a dynamic interaction, right? So after I will run a red line or I will have it redline a client's response or a client may propose changes, and I may want to provide alternatives, but I need to think through more options. It will be able to give me a series of options based on context that I think is really helpful. It'll also help me explain complicated legal principles to others in a much more simplified manner, which is very helpful when I'm dealing with clients because they don't necessarily need to know exactly how the sausage is made. They just want to know what the sandwich is going to taste like. It also will help me understand what the benefits and disadvantages are to pushing back on certain provisions. I may not have seen that before. So I really use it a lot as almost like a thought partner. As a solo lawyer, I don't have colleagues I can walk to their office and ask. So it'll at least get me on the right footing when it comes to proposing changes to a document. I have saved a tremendous amount of time doing initial passes on documents because it helps people, I think, get over analysis paralysis a little bit, right? Where you start overthinking things and going down rabbit holes. It gives a project a start, right? It gives a red line a start. So I definitely can review far more agreements than before. I spend a lot less time looking for stuff and trying to find a statute that justifies this or whatever. I can simply ask the chat window about what I'm thinking. And I think in terms of revenue, what it's done is it really has been able to empower small firm owners and solo practitioners. That's what I am. And it's democratized the way that lawyers can operate. So it enables smaller operators to provide the quality of review, possibly even better review, that large firms could provide in half the amount of time. Obviously you have to try to believe it. And in a lot of ways, one of the things that Gavel Exec does incredibly well is that its knowledge is highly curated, so it gives extremely good answers. So one thing that I did when I was evaluating Gavel Exec is I ran it against one of its competitors, and I put in the same document. And you don't need to do this for every document, but I looked at from really for me, the main criterion was the quality of the response. Because there are features like buttons and things like that really don't matter in the long run. What matters is how accurate and helpful is this response? And so I don't necessarily look at things like feature sets because really, if you think about it, the two things that make Gavel special are the quality of what it was trained on. All right, so if you're on the fence about using Gavel, I do think you should look at Gavel as opposed to just straight AI, as opposed to competitors, right? I think it's a misconception that things like Gavel are just a wrapper for AI because the thing that it has that's bespoke and special is the body of knowledge that it's been trained on, right? And I think that you're going to find deeper answers and better answers and more accurate answers from Gavel than from some of the other legal based AI that I've used. I think the answers are deeper. I think it somehow reasons better. And I think it's just extremely easy to use because I work very well in conversation, right? That's probably why I became an attorney. And I think that it has a very conversational, interactive interface. So that's definitely for me. I think you should figure out if it is easy for you to use based on the way that you work. And I think you're going to find that it really is. It's very, at least for me and for my team, it's very simple and very intuitive.